Secretary Ashok Prasad Shishnath Abhayjaran Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Koti Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Vanitai Gaur Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashta Prayashu Padrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sivayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naishtaki. Krishna. So today we read from the 10th canto, a verse.
How did we jump there?
Temple president said I can pick a verse from Damodar related to Damodar Lila.
Damodar Lila, okay.
So, with the blessings of all the assembled devotees, senior devotees especially, I'll try to elaborate a little bit on this pastime, which is so full of Krishna's glories and his devotees, glories of his devotees. And apart from the rasa dance, this is the most popular of Krishna's pastimes. And this pastime is given a full month of celebration every year. So it's nice. So we have this verse from the 8th chapter, text number 45. And anybody know what's special about this verse?
You don't know what verse it is?
It's not there?
Yeah, but you can read Sanskrit.
Yeah. Alright, we'll just read it and then
You can chant responsibly.
Traya Chopanishadhischa
Traya
Sankhya Yogaischa Sattvate Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanyatatmacham Traya Chopanishadhischa Sankhya Yogaischa Sattvate Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanyatatmacham
Traya Chopanishadischa Sankhya Yogaischa Sattvatai Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanyata Asam Sajam
Chopanishadischa Sankhya Yogaischa Sattvate Upagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanyatatmajam Traya Chopani Chavdicha
Traya Chopani Chavdicha
Sankhya Yoga Isha Sattvatai
Sankhya Yoga Isha Sattvatai
Upagya Mana Mahatmyayam
Upagiyamana Mahatmyam
Harim Samangyatatmacham
Harim Samanyatatmajam. Ladies, anyone? Five? They're shy.
Alright. Word to word translation. Traya.
Traya.
By studying the three Vedas,
By
Study
studying
the
three
three Vedas,
Sama, Yajur and Atharva,
Sam, Yajur and Atharva.
Cha,
Cha.
also,
Also.
Upanishad, Cha,
Upanishad.
and by studying the Vedic knowledge
By studying the Vedic knowledge
of the Upanishads,
of the Upanishads.
Samkhya Yogai,
Sankhya Yoga.
by rendering the literature of Samkhya Yoga,
By reading the literature of Sankhya Yoga.
by reading the literature of Samkhya Yoga. Cha,
Cha.
and Sattvate,
Sattvate.
by the great sages and devotees,
By the great sages and devotees.
or by reading Vaishnava Tantra, Pancharatras.
Or by reading Vaishnava Tantra, Pancharatras.
Upagiyamana Mahatmyam,
Upagiyamana Mahatmyam,
whose glories are worshipped
whose glories are worshipped
by all these Vedic literatures,
by all these Vedic literatures.
Harim,
Harim,
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Sa,
Sa,
she,
Amanyata,
Amanyata,
considered ordinary,
considered ordinary,
Atmacham,
Atmacham,
as her own son.
as her own son.
Translation and report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the Prabhupada Eve. Translation. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are studied through the three Vedas, the Upanishads, the literature of Sankhya Yoga, and other Vaishnava literature. Yet, Mother Yashoda considered that Supreme Person her ordinary child. The Prabhupada comments. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the purpose of studying the Vedas is to understand him. Vedaischa save aham eva vidyo. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to Sanatana Goswami that there are three purposes in the Vedas. One is to understand our relationship with Krishna, Sambandha. Another is to act according to that relationship, Avideya. And the third is to reach the ultimate goal, Prayojana. The word Prayojana means necessities. And the ultimate necessity is explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prema Pumarto Mahan. The greatest necessity for a human being is the achievement of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here we see that Mother Yashoda is on the highest stage of necessity, for she is completely absorbed in love for Krishna. In the beginning, the Vedic purpose is pursued in three ways. Trai, by Karma Kanda, in three ways. By Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. When one reaches the complete, perfect stage of Upasana Kanda, one comes to worship Narayan, or Lord Vishnu. When Parvati asked Lord Mahadev, Lord Shiva, what is the best method of Upasana, or worship, Lord Shiva answered, Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param. Vishnu Upasana, or Vishnu Aradhana, worship of Lord Vishnu, is the highest stage of perfection, as realized by Devaki. But here Mother Yashoda performs no Upasana, for she has developed transcendental ecstatic love for Krishna. Therefore, her position is better than that of Devaki. In order to show this, Srila Vyasadeva enunciates this verse, Traya Upanishadhi, etc. When a human being enters into the study of the Vedas to obtain vidya, knowledge, he begins to take part in human civilization. Then he advances further to study the Upanishads and gain Brahmajnana, impersonal realization of the absolute truth. And then he advances still further to Sankhya Yoga in order to understand the Supreme Controller, who is indicated in Bhagavad Gita. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashvatam. When one understands that Purusha, the Supreme Controller, to be Paramatma, one is engaged in the method of yoga. Dhyana vastita tat katena manasa, pashyanti yam yogina. But Mother Yashoda has surpassed all these stages. She has come to the platform of loving Krishna as her beloved child. And therefore she is accepted to be on the highest stage of spiritual realization. The absolute truth is realized in three features, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan, Iti Shaktiti. But she is in such ecstasy that she does not care to understand what is Brahman, what is Paramatma, or what is Bhagavan. Bhagavan has personally descended to become her beloved child. Therefore, there is no comparison to Mother Yashoda's good fortune. As declared by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramya Kachit Upasana Vrajavadu Vargena Yakalpita. The absolute truth is supreme. The absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, may be realized in different stages. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatamam prapatyante tam stateva bhajamyaham mama vartman vartante manusya vartasarvasha. As men surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Prita. One may be a karmi, a jnani, a yogi, and then a bhakta or prema bhakta. But the ultimate stage of realization is prema bhakti, as actually demonstrated by Mother Yashoda. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutam Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swatam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttavadakamam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sacham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopesha Gopikanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vrachari Nirvishesha Srimati Paschantari Shritari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gauravakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse, this particular verse, was spoken by Srila Shukadeva Goswami right after the pastime where Lord Krishna is showing the universal form to Mother Yashoda. So this particular form is said to be only existing, or Krishna only displays this form within this material world. Very rarely. There's a couple of occasions, and one of them is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna inquired from Krishna, and he wanted to see that form. Arjuna wanted to see that Krishna is actually, everything is part of Krishna. So, and here, Mother Yashoda was looking into Krishna's mouth because some of Krishna's friends had been complaining that Krishna ate dirt. And of course, Mother Yashoda, being the mother, a very affectionate mother of Krishna, she was very concerned. So Krishna was afraid that she will chastise him if she finds out. So Krishna denied. He said, no, I did not eat dirt. And then Mother Yashoda said, well, if that is true, then please open your mouth and I will see if there is dirt in your mouth or not. And Krishna opened his mouth, and what Mother Yashoda saw was the entire creation. She saw everything that exists, the universe, the whole material world, everything was there. And after this, Mother Yashoda, for a moment, she realized that, wow, my son is not an ordinary child. And she was almost about to understand that this must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then the Yoga Maya energy, that is Krishna's illusory energy that covers the pure devotees, understanding that Krishna is God. So usually we have Maya. Maya means illusion, or it's the illusory energy of Krishna, is covering the living entities in the material world in different ways for the purpose of allowing us to experience life without God. So that's the purpose of this illusion. Everything has a purpose in the material world. Nothing happens by chance. And in the spiritual world, this illusory energy also exists, but it has a slightly different purpose. It's like the other side of the same coin. It's the same energy, but instead of taking the person away from God, it actually brings the person closer, the devotees closer to Krishna, by removing the knowledge that he is God. It's confusing, a little bit confusing. Usually people in general, they don't accept Krishna as God, or they don't even know Krishna exists, or they don't believe that God exists. In the spiritual world, everything is the other way around. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, that this material world is actually a reflection of the spiritual world. So when you see anything in a mirror, it's mirrored. It's the other way around. If something is far away in the mirror, then it's actually far away behind you instead of in front. And in the same way, whatever is considered bad in the material world is actually, in the spiritual world, it's turned around, and vice versa. So this yoga maya energy, it brings the people closer, brings the devotees closer by taking away the knowledge that Krishna is God. But this stage of understanding who is God cannot be artificially jumped over. And that's why the first stage, which Srila Prabhupada explains here, is Sambandha Gyan. The first stage of achieving God realization or self-realization is to understand the relationship that we have with God. The eternal relationship of the Atma, the soul, with Paramatma, the super soul. And then, because the pure devotees, like Madhya Yashoda and all the Brajvasis, they are already on the perfected stage. They have already surpassed this stage of fully understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, that knowledge is taken away so that they can experience a closer relationship with God. In most religions, God is understood to be the Supreme Being, sometimes as a person, sometimes not so much as a person, but there is a sense of awe and reverence to God, and there is no scope for having a friendly, close relationship with God. But as I explained before, everything that exists in this material world actually has an original form everything that exists here in the material world has an original form in the spiritual world. So all the different relationships, types of relationships that exist within this world, they also exist in the spiritual world. There are family relations, there are our parents, brothers, sisters, our children, grandfather, grandmother, friends, teachers, like that. So many different relationships we have with different people. And Madhya Yashoda, she is glorified here in this verse for having this exalted position of being the mother of Krishna. So generally there are 5 different relationships. All the relationships that the devotees have with Krishna are generally categorized in 5 different levels or 5 different relationships, and these are servitude. This is the mood of wanting to serve God. Then there is friendship, which is displayed by the cowherd boys, the cowherd boy friends of Krishna. Then the parental affection, which is displayed by Madhya Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. And then there is the rasa, or the relationship of Krishna with the gopis and the queens, which is a conjugal relationship. And then there is the neutrality relationship also, which is not wanting to do any service, but just the awe and reverence for God. God is so great. So, and generally it's understood that the highest of these relationships is that which Krishna has with his consort, Srimati Radharani and the gopis, because they fully surrender themselves to Krishna's will. But this parental affection that Madhya Yashoda has and Nanda Maharaj, there's something very special about it. And for that reason, this particular verse has been chosen as the Parivasa Sutra of the 10th Canto. A Parivasa Sutra is a verse that encapsulates the purpose of a particular book without directly mentioning that this is a rule. So a sutra is a short phrase that defines a particular, defines a rule. A sutra is a rule. But the Parivasa Sutra is a rule which is not mentioned as such. But the Acharyas, the learned Vaishnava scholars, they can find those verses because they understand the purpose of this literature. They can find out which verses they are. And for the 10th canto is the cream, the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam has 12 cantos, and all of them are related to Krishna and his incarnations and the activities of his pure devotees. And in the 10th canto, Krishna's pastimes, his personal pastimes, are related. The other cantos, they talk about other incarnations. There are the Dashavatar, the 10 incarnations of Krishna. Varahadev as a boar, in the form of a boar. Vamanadev, there is Lord Ramachandra, there is Lord Nrsimhadev, there is Matsyadev, there is Kurmadev, and there are so many other incarnations of Krishna which are described. But the 10th cantos only deals with Krishna's personal pastimes in Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwarka. And the special thing about Mother Yashoda's relationship is that she considers Krishna, Supreme Lord, to be subordinate to her, dependent on her. Mother Yashoda is always concerned about Krishna's welfare, especially when Krishna goes out with his friends. She's always constantly thinking, hopefully nothing happens to him. Hopefully he doesn't, step on thorns, or maybe one of the cows accidentally trips over him. So there's so many dangers that could be there. And Mother Yashoda is constantly absorbed in thinking of the welfare of Krishna. And in the previous verse, Srila Shukadeva Goswami Parikshit Maharaj is saying in the next verse, Parikshit Maharaj is asking, O learned Brahmana, Shukadeva Goswami, Mother Yashoda's breast milk was sucked by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What past auspicious activities did she and Nanda Maharaj perform to achieve such perfection in ecstatic love? The Acharyas comment that Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they are eternally Krishna's parents in the spiritual world. And when they come here to Boma Vrindavan, Rajabhumi, on this planet, they take on that role, not as conditioned souls, and also not because of some previous pious activities, but they actually eternally are Krishna's parents. However, in the following verses, Srila Shukadeva Goswami explains that Drona and Dara, they are two demigods. They performed austerities in order to have the Supreme Lord as their son. They requested Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, that they may take birth in the material world, and that he himself also takes birth in order to display his pastimes and liberate the conditioned souls in this world. And as a result, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. They appeared as Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. That's the explanation in the Bhagavatam. So the explanation of the Acharyas is that this seems to be an apparent contradiction. Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj are already Krishna's parents, but here the explanation is that they became Krishna's parents because of their austerities and because they got the benediction from Lord Brahma. So the Acharyas say that actually Drona and Tara are partial incarnations or partial expansions of Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba, and that they simultaneously appear when Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj appear in this world. And we see a similar dynamic in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna asks Krishna, how is it that you related this knowledge, this transcendental science of the Bhagavad Gita, to the sun god, which was millions and millions of years before? Krishna says that he already explained this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita a very long time ago to the sun god Vivashvan. And Krishna replies that actually both you and me, we had many millions of births, but you cannot remember, I can remember them. And sometimes people argue that Krishna is an expansion of Vishnu and Narayan, because Krishna only came 5,000 years ago, and Narayan is eternally the Supreme Lord. And however, this is materialistic logic, because Krishna can appear at any time, in any place. So if Krishna would appear now, you cannot say that, well, Krishna appeared in 2021 and that means there must have been some other gods before. but Krishna is just, he displays his pastime and then goes into another universe and displays his pastime. And in the spiritual world, he's continuously performing those pastimes. So, in the same way, Vasudeva and Devaki, who were considered Krishna's original parents, they are also Krishna's eternal parents. And there is a similar story there, that they performed austerities in the previous lives as Sutapa and Prishni. That was their names. And as a result of their austerities and their prayers, they received the Supreme Lord. They were requesting to have a son, which is like Narayan, like the Supreme Lord. So they attained this benediction 3 times in 3 lifetimes. First, in that particular lifetime as Sutapa and Prishni. Then, as Kashyapa and Aditi, they had Vamanadev as their child. Vamanadev is the dwarf incarnation of Krishna that conquered the universe with 3 steps that we had a few weeks ago, this Appearance Day. And then the third time they had the Supreme Lord as their son was as Vasudeva and Devaki. And that was Vasudeva Krishna. So some acharyas comment that actually Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they were much more fortunate than Devaki, Vasudeva and Devaki, because they were able to witness Krishna's childhood pastimes. And Vasudeva and Devaki were not able to do that, because Krishna was transferred to Vrindavan from Mathura just after his birth. And later, when he was older, around 12 or 16, he went back to Mathura to see his so-called original parents. Now, there's a lot of detail in where Krishna actually appeared, because in the Bhagavatam it's mentioned Krishna appeared in Mathura as the child of Mother Devaki, and then he was brought to Vrindavan. But then there are some other scriptures that show that Mother Yashoda actually gave birth to twins, which was Yogamaya and Krishna, and that when Krishna was brought from Mathura, then he merged into the body of the original Krishna. So, original Krishna was born in Vrindavan from Mother Yashoda. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned here in the purport, apart from Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of our relationship with God, there is the knowledge of how to apply that knowledge, knowledge of how to express that relationship. And that is Abhideya, where we practice devotional service. And there are different ways to do that. And the Acharyas always explain how this is to be performed according to the time, place and circumstances. And then Prayojana is the ultimate goal. So the ultimate goal is here personified by Mother Yashoda, that she has already attained that perfection of pure unalloyed love for Krishna, without any tinge of awe and reverence. And if we want to achieve the ultimate goal, then we need to have some knowledge of that. And we need to have knowledge of how to get there. And then first of all, of course, what our position is right now. Just like if you enter into a taxi, you need to tell the taxi driver where you want to go. You cannot just say, bring me to the destination. Or if you start a job at a business and you're hired, then you need to know what is your position. If the company just tells you, okay, you're hired, you can start tomorrow, but what are you going to do? Are you the manager? Are you the sweeper? Are you the cook? You need to know your relationship first with that company. So in the same way, the Srimad Bhagavatam has all of this knowledge. It has all the knowledge that we need to understand our position, that we need to understand how to perform our activities in relation to our position and in relation to Krishna, and what the goal is, which is explained in the 10th canto. So I'll conclude here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can also go for breakfast now. The time is for breakfast. Hare Krishna. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Krishna ki jai.
He has one question. One question. Giri.
Yeah, you're saying that some people think Krishna comes from Narayan because Narayan is eternally present. I think it's because all the acharyas kind of preach so that if you look at the Ramanujacharya, they say that because eternally, as you said, he is present eternally in Vaikuntha as descent. But Krishna Tattva is not revealed, easily, as you know, only Lord Chaitanya is avatari himself, and he comes and it's a kind of thing. I think before the Supreme Lord comes, there was a platform being laid, as you know that Shankaracharya taught Advaitavad and all the there was a series of acharyas coming and preaching. Yeah, I come from South India myself. For me to accept Krishna as Supreme Lord, it took a long time to digest it. You had to. But there is an explanation also that even Krishna, when he comes to the material world, he comes through the Shirodaksha Vishnu.
Yes.
So that's where they think that Shirodaksha Vishnu is the source of for Krishna. He enters. But for a Gaudiya Vaishnava, it's like no, even when he wants to come to the material world, he doesn't break the law. He follows the rules just to make things that it's for us. So, yeah, it's a big thing that for South Indians to accept Krishna doesn't come from Narayan. It's like I don't know, you're getting confused or something. Anyway, I just wanted to add that my own personal.
Thank you. Is there a question or just comment?
No, just comment.
Comment?
No,
Is there somebody had a question?
No, I thought there was no question.
Okay. Prashadam ki jai.
Yeah.